it's Tracy Jackson, also known as a spiritual cheerleader, and I'm coming to you this week with a pep tip on preparing your Oracle card decks. I feel like this step gets overlooked by so many people. A lot of times you get a new deck, you break it open, you take the little thing that wraps around off and you start shuffling and you ask a question. And what we forget is that the cards have been manufactured. They've been packed by human hands many times. They have been loaded into boxes, put on trucks, and then they are unloaded by human hands. And all of those transfers contain energy. Some of that energy may be good, some of it might be not so good. So obviously preparing the deck and consecrating it for your own purposes is something that I highly recommend, just as you do with crystals. Obviously each crystal, it might come with a set meaning. For instance, pyrite is typically a crystal that is associated with prosperity and trying to call that prosperity and abundance in your life. Well, I could set that, but I could set the specific intention for this stone to be prosperity in, my spiritual work only. You know what I'm saying? Versus prosperity in general as a whole. The same holds true for cards. I can have a card deck that serves a specific purpose, but yet and still I could consecrate and intend for that deck to be for a particular purpose. And that's what prepping the deck really helps you to work with. Now, with respect to my decks, I usually don't necessarily intend a deck at the very outset, because I usually like the deck to tell me how it's going to serve me or how it's going to show up for me. So many times I don't really set that intention until sometime after starting using the deck. But I always prep the deck and always, consecrate it because, like I said, there's tons of people touching it. So when I first get a deck, it usually has one of these little white, sometimes they're clear, little bands around the cards. So usually when I get the deck, the first thing I do is take that off. I'm a little anal, so I usually don't like them to break, and I usually keep them. But the first thing that I do is I knock the card. I knock the card, I run my hand over, back and forth over the card, imagining white light coming from my hand, permeating the cards, removing any negative energy from the cards, right? Next, I actually touch each card to put my energy on the card, okay? Because I've basically run over the cards with my hand to remove negative energy, and then I want to imbue the cards with my energy. Now, before I move on with, touching each card, I want to say that you don't necessarily have to use the trick of the white light method. There are several other ways to clear the energy of your deck, one of which is through smudging tools. Another is through sound. Just as you clear crystals with sound, you can clear the cards with sound. And you can even use smudge sprays to clean the cards. And that comes in handy, especially for me. I usually travel with a physical deck when I travel, and if I'm coming into contact with people and they want to play with my cards or, touch my cards, I totally allow them to do it. And then after they've done all of that, I use the smudge spray to cleanse my cards. I don't go through this whole preparation process again, but I do cleanse the cards and really intend that my energy really becomes superior on the cards rather than the energy that of the others that were touching him. But personal preference. You choose what you want to do. So like I said, I touch every single card and I put it out. If the cards are like Colette Baron reads, where you can read them upside down and reverse, a lot of times what I do, I separate them into piles. So I'm shuffling, because many times when we get the cards, they're in the order of the actual book. So if it's 1 to 52, it's, they're in order from 1 to 52. Or if they're in alphabetical order, they're right next to, everything in alphabetical order. And so obviously you want to shuffle them. So me being me, I want to quickly do this. So I put them into different piles so that I'm basically, in essence, shuffling them while putting my energy on them, right? And so once I get them into multiple piles, if they are a deck that can be read upright and reverse, I usually spread them out in a circle so that some of them end up being upside down, some of them end up being right side up, and I mash them all together and pick them up like so. Right? So after doing that, if it's a regular deck that's read just upright, you don't have to do the circle method. You can just put them in the piles, collect them up, and move on to this next step. The next step is I fan the cards out and I hold them to my heart and say a little prayer over them, saying basically that I want the cards to be imbued with my energy, to allow guidance from source to come through, that guidance be clear, understandable, and for the highest good of all. And you can say something like that. You can say your prayer to whomever you wish to say it to. I usually use capital G, God, but obviously whatever floats your boat, you can use whatever, especially if the deck is like specifically for a particular goddess or angel or whatever. You could speak to that angel if you'd like, right? So that's basically my preparation method in a nutshell. After, I've done all of that, then I start, doing my first shuffle to actually pick a card to ask a question about. And I just feel like the cards seem to have a better relationship with me by doing that. And I started doing that from the very start. I remember when I bought my first deck from Doreen Virtue, I read in her guidebook about preparing the deck. And so ever since then, I've had my method for preparing it. So it was inspired by Doreen Virtue's way of doing it. It's a little bit different in the sense of touching each one and trying to shuffle them at the same time as and doing the circle method, but that's typically how I cleanse my deck. That's how I prepare it for use. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people miss this step. They wonder why some of the cards they get don't make sense, don't understandable, and it's because the cards aren't really recognizing you yet. Sometimes they don't, you don't even get all of the cards. Like, you keep getting the same card over and over, and sometimes that happens because it's something that you really need to integrate, but sometimes it's because the cards don't know you. So get to know your deck. Get to put your energy into the cards, but clear the energy that's in the cards already, so that you have a fresh slate that you're working off of and you're putting your energy on. And obviously when you're coming to the deck, try to come to the deck with a neutral energy as well. Obviously, don't come to your deck mad or angry or sad, because that's usually what you're going to end up getting reflected back to you. So if you can calm yourself, perfect way to do this is through meditation, and then come to the deck, your answers are going to be a lot more helpful, and a lot more accurate for what it is that you're asking about. Obviously, I can go into a little bit more depth on that. I do feel like my teacher, Holly Bernie, has a wonderful resource on her website about finding the right question for the deck, and I'll share that next week along with some of my tips in finding the right question to ask for your deck. And I hope that this was helpful for you. Let me know, do you prepare your decks? Have you prepared your decks in the past? How do you feel the decks work for you, being prepared versus not prepared? I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to give me a thumbs up, and feel free to check out some of my other videos, subscribe, do all that other fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, have a good one. Bye.